The Tale of the Misty Graveyard Girl. This mysterious and bewildering account unfolded last year, during the early days of autumn. At that point, there was no inkling of trouble on the horizon, but trouble indeed arrived late while we were en route to the country house. Our destination was the rural abode, as we intended to celebrate Veronica's birthday, the wife of my close friend Nick. Our wives had headed there earlier in the day, and we were scheduled to join them later, stopping by a warehouse for supplies on our way to the country house. That was the plan, and we executed it accordingly. But then, as we left the city, our path led us to a village about 10 kilometers away, a settlement where people constructed homes and mansions more for personal enjoyment than for agricultural pursuits. The weather, though expectedly warm for the southern region, was contrary to the season. Beaches were bustling with tourists, and the city seemed alive around the clock. "Did we get everything?" I inquired, lighting a cigarette through the SUV's open window. "Yeah, I think so," my friend nonchalantly replied. At that moment, my wife called, asking about our imminent arrival. I assured her that we were about 10 minutes away, with other guests due at 4 o'clock, necessitating our prompt preparation. "Anxious?" I teased. "They're getting bored," he retorted. I tossed the cigarette out, embracing the warm wind as we drove on. After a few minutes, an unusual occurrence transpired. While weather changes were swift in the south, this was exceptional. "What the hell?" Nick exclaimed. Suddenly, our car was enveloped in a thick fog, appearing seemingly out of nowhere. It was so dense that the headlights failed to penetrate it, as if the light was absorbed by an unseen force. I'd never seen anything like it. The car halted, and we emerged, standing on the cracked asphalt, inhaling the cool, damp air. As we took a few steps away, Nick vanished into the fog, his footsteps swallowed by its silent embrace. "Hey, where are you?" After an anxious pause, my comrade reappeared, visibly frightened. "What happened?" Cursing and breathless, he approached me. I took a few steps to the side, and almost immediately saw the cemetery. He exclaimed, "A cemetery? That's absurd. It's the other way around." "I know, but it's not our cemetery. It's different." Attempting to compose himself, he continued, "It was old, with holes in the fence. When I appeared beyond the fence, wooden crosses emerged from the fog, weathered and blackened by time. Complete silence prevailed. Not a single sound. I stood there for a few minutes, and then—" "What few minutes? Why are you lying? You were gone for 30 seconds, no more than a minute. I'm telling you." Wiping his lips, he went on suddenly. "I noticed movement between the graves. As I looked closer, I realized it was a human silhouette. After a few moments, I discerned a beautiful girl with a pale face and green eyes. Her long, dark hair fluttered in the wind, even though it was eerily calm." "And then what?" "Nothing. I ran back." "Where to?" "To the car." "But you weren't gone that long." I dismissed it mentally, circled the SUV, and headed in the right direction. "Where are you going?" "To see my cemetery." And the girl stopped. Don't go." But inevitably, I discovered nothing. By the roadside, a field disappeared into impenetrable fog. "I don't understand anything," muttered Nick to himself. Trailing behind me, there was a cemetery there, and that girl, too. "We've had enough of this. Let's go." Back in the car, we drove on, and miraculously, the fog dissipated, yielding to the comforting southern sun once again. "I swear to you, there was a cemetery and a girl," he insisted. "A beautiful girl in a white dress, and her body was visible through the dress." "Did you see it in the fog?" "Just—" He hesitated. "What else?" "Anyway, she approached me. She had green eyes and lightly touched my cheek with icy fingers. It felt like an electric shock, and I turned away quickly." For some reason, he had omitted that detail initially, perhaps reluctant to share such personal experiences. "Okay, let's forget about it," I suggested. not eager to delve into the enigmatic topic, but forgetting proved futile when we reached the country house, finding it empty. Our wives had vanished without a trace, along with their belongings. What nonsense is this? It's only 2 o'clock, and they're already gone. The guests are arriving soon, and nothing is prepared. As it turned out later, we had been missing for 2 days. Our brief excursion had inexplicably extended to over 48 hours. That's when Nick's story resurfaced in my memory. I couldn't fathom it, and neither did our wives. They dismissed our account as unbelievable, attributing it to a night out with friends. "You've been with your girlfriends, haven't you?" my wife accused. I defended myself, asserting that my family life was satisfactory, and I harbored no inclination for extramarital affairs. The narrative seemed to fade away, but subsequent events proved otherwise. Around 10 p.m., my phone rang, interrupting my bedtime plans. Nick's call diverted my attention. "Hello, she's here," Nick whispered. "Who is she?" "The girl from the cemetery." In hushed tones, he continued. "I was driving back from the yacht club when I saw a girl in a white dress on the roadside. With no wife around, I thought, why not? I stopped, called out to her, and when she turned around, and what happened? Then she got into my car, and I drove her home." Home? What an idiot. I grappled with mixed emotions, learning that the cemetery girl existed. Contrary to my initial skepticism, "I have to go." Nick abruptly ended the call. "She's calling me." He muttered something to someone in the apartment, but I couldn't decipher the words as he momentarily covered the receiver. "I don't think it's a good idea to bring some girl into my apartment," I cautioned. "I have to go. She's waiting for me." Nick uttered the last words with anticipation, as if expecting something extraordinary and pleasant. No, wait." The line went dead, and subsequent attempts to reconnect proved futile. I hastily packed, grabbed my car keys, and dashed out of the apartment. "Where are you going?" my wife questioned, surprised. "I'll be back soon," I assured. Throughout the journey, concern for my friend consumed me. That day I had doubted his tale of the cemetery and the girl, despite witnessing the peculiar fog and slowed time. Now, I raced across town, eager to arrive in time. "She's come for him," a thought echoed in my mind, because Nick saw her, and that's why she came for him. After roughly 20 minutes of driving, I reached the destination, finding the door surprisingly unlocked. Quietly traversing the rooms, I eventually reached the bedroom. There, I discovered Nick lying on the bed in complete darkness, his lifeless gaze fixed on emptiness, his mouth with darkened lips contorted into a soundless scream. He appeared drained, like a doll void of air. The apartment exuded a strong scent of damp earth, enveloping me in an invisible film of moisture. However, these sensations vanished abruptly, lingering only in my memory. Approaching the lifeless body, I froze when the earthy scent returned, intensifying with each heartbeat, confused and spinning. I took another step, and an inexplicable mist enveloped me. Starting as a light haze, it thickened into an airless cocoon. Jesus, what's happening? Struggling to discern the bed containing my friend's body, I pressed on, attempting to find a reference point. Bafflingly, I continued forward until the earthy odor became repulsive, and I beheld a decrepit fence behind which lay the cemetery among the damp graves. A feminine silhouette emerged. God. Animalistic terror gripped me, and I sprinted away, retracing my steps to find myself back in the familiar room, surrounded by the corpse. Another scent joined in the stench of decaying flowers. I wish she hadn't seen me. I wish she hadn't seen me. "Where are you going?" a soft voice echoed from behind. It resembled the way a tender lover might speak to a child, or a mother to her son, seeking attention. "Come here, dear." After what felt like an eternity, but truly only a minute, I emerged from the fog, back in the bedroom. Without lingering, Gripped by mortal fear, I fled the apartment, desperate to erase the memory. Yet, before I could, I collided with Veronica, nearly knocking her over. Emerging from the kitchen, she held a tea mug, and Nick's body had vanished, a detail I initially overlooked. "What are you doing here?" she exclaimed. Perplexed, I vigorously shook my head and, circumventing Nick's wife, hurried down the stairs, constantly glancing back for a girl in a white dress. Veronica shouted something after me. It took considerable effort to explain how I ended up in that apartment 3 days after Nick's demise. Indeed, I had been absent for an extended period, prompting my wife's concern when I didn't return home at night. Thus, the tale concluded on a tragic note. To this day, the events in the fog and the subsequent episode in the apartment remain inexplicable. One thing is certain. The cemetery girl came for my friend. I shudder to think how events might have unfolded if I had seen her first that day instead of Nick. One more revelation surfaced. As I delved into archives, an obscure cemetery existed in the early 19th century, where villagers found their resting place. Its remnants vanished with changing authorities.